part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another edition of the Reg Eye and Rhoda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Producer extraordinaire Dave Emmert doing what he does to make us appear in that podcatosphere on a regular basis. He's the best in the business. We appreciate all that he does, so you get to hear what we have to say. And Reg, we're going to talk Browns today. We're going to talk Buckeyes, Cavs, Indians, and the first edition on the R&R podcast of Bump In and Run In with Reg Eye and Rhoda. Oh, yeah, baby.
Woo-hoo is all I can say to that. Bump and Run is back, and we're gonna hear some voices, Kenny, that you and I heard quite a bit from back in the day.
That's right. And a shout out if he's tuning in to our old producer, Dave Dino Natale.
Yes.
He responded on Twitter with the little bump and run message out there. Dino, we're thinking of you as you made Bump and Run the greatest segment in radio history back in the day.
He loved it. I mean, I'll be honest, he was more into it than I was when it began, but he was a linchpin for making that thing kind of have a life of its own, Ken, right?
Yeah, no doubt. We'll see if any equipment is brought up in our bump and run question of the day, which was, by the way, your expectations for the Browns. That'll be our last segment of the show, so stay tuned for that. Speaking of the Browns, Michael, let's get started right then and there. 53-man roster set, practice squad set, first game on the schedule set. It's Sunday. A week from today, we're taping on a Sunday night. At Kansas City against those Chiefs. A heck of a way to start, the team that knocked you out of the playoffs and ended your season last year. Let's start with, the roster. Anything really surprise you, Reg, that they did with the 53-man or pretty much what you thought?
Yeah, pretty much. I think, there's some on the defensive side of the ball, Kenny, I'd say especially that we'll get into the interior defensive line, the defensive, if you want to call them the defensive tackles,
right?
Maybe came out a little bit different than we thought, and especially with that late resurgence of Malik McDowell, the kid who played at Michigan State. And I know Andrew Berry, he was on him back in 2017 when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. So they really think highly of Malik McDowell, and he's had a little bit of a checkered past, right? And listen, he's 6'6", 295, and I did not like them letting go Sheldon Richardson, and so I think it's going to be a situation where a guy like Malik McDowell, and who knows, maybe Tommy Togiai and Elliott as well. These guys are going to have to play and then give the Browns some strong reps, Kenny, in the interior between Myles Garrett and
Jadeveon Clowney.
Jadeveon Clowney. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
My concern with them is the linebacking core still. Anthony Walker, who they picked up from Indianapolis, one starter. A lot of times they're going to go 4-2-5, so they're only going to play two linebackers. So is that Mack Wilson? They protected or kept him on the 53-man and then put him on the IR and Jacob Phillips. So they expect, I guess, him to come back at some point. They love his game. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the Swiss Army knife, linebacker, safety. So you could see him playing one of those two positions. That's the one position I still have a little bit of a concern with. And then the injuries are still my concern, Reg. I mean, Grant Delpit, they protected him. The guy hasn't played an NFL snap in the regular season. I don't know what to expect from him. And is he 100% if he plays Sunday against Kansas City? And Greedy Williams, same thing, a shoulder, quad or groin or whatever the heck that is too. So, how close to 100% are those two going to be if they are, and if they play at all next Sunday? So that's the area that I guess, along with the kicker, nice job, you effing kicker. That's the spot, the spots, I guess, that concern me going into week one.
Well, all that's legitimate. Now, without question, and especially that's another area that, I'm going to keep close tabs on, that linebacker spot. Now, I do think, Kenny, because of the way that Joe Woods likes to play, the defensive coordinator, I think you're going to be seeing a lot of both Ronnie Harrison and John Johnson John Johnson's one of the best combination of free, and John Johnson can play both safety spots if he has to and play up near the line of scrimmage. And that's my point in bringing those two up. I think Ronnie Harrison and Kenny, they're almost going to be like hybrid linebackers in a lot of personnel packages, and maybe more up near the line of scrimmage than you would, we just normally believe that strong safeties, free safeties are in the NFL. And I think that's going to have to be a large part of the Browns' defensive personnel packaging. But I look for those two to they're going to have to be, I think, guys who are up amongst the tackling leaders on this football team, Ken.
Yeah, the good news was before they got the weekend off, Delpit returned to practice. Greedy Williams returned to practice. So that was good news. And they got 3 days off. They'll be back at it tomorrow, get an early start on Monday as we're taping this on a Sunday night. Start implementing the KC game plan and everything along those lines. Mm-hmm. And so we'll see if these guys can remain healthy throughout the week and be on that. What do they dress, Reg? It's a 53-man roster. 46, is it? Is that 7? What it is? Something like, yeah.
6 or
so
7.
We'll see if they actually dress, because I always listen before the game starts to see the game day scratches, the late scratches, who's not going to play. So let's hope those guys are healthy enough to play and healthy enough to help this defense, because you start with the best offense, in my opinion, in the entire NFL, and the best quarterback in the league, and Patty Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Kelsey. I mean, this offense is the real deal, man.
It is. You make a case. There's certainly, when you talk about the most complete and the most explosive and offensive punch at every position, the Kansas City Chiefs have that, and it's going to be quite an opportunity for the Browns to right away be able to show that they're going to be able to handle the Kansas Cities, the Buffaloes, the top offenses, at least, that we have in the AFC. And then down, can they, in the last few years, as we know, it's been very difficult against the Baltimore Ravens, especially in Baltimore. There's been problems there. So, and I think, the one guy that we didn't mention when we were discussing the linebackers there, I think that Anthony Walker is going to have a real good season as well. I mean, it's a guy with he's going to play the middle, the Mike linebacker, right. And I think he's going to have to maybe rejuvenate some of the better years he had in Indianapolis and be a guy that shows up that you can really count on playing that position for the Browns.
All right, Chase McLaughlin gets some competition. They signed Chris Nagar, I guess is how you pronounce it, Naggar. He's a rookie out of SMU, undrafted, but supposedly, allegedly, he's got a big right leg, 17 of 21, 43 of 46 on extra points in 2020 when he played there at SMU. This concerns me, Reg. Week one, if it's a close game,
sure.
I don't know if we're
going
to
have
much
about him.
Yeah,
I don't know much about Nagar.
Yeah,
I mean, I've never seen him, attempt a field goal in the National Football League, and so it's almost going to be like baptism under fire for him and that Browns special team. And we know, let's be honest, how many games are going to come down to that, right? Fourth quarter. I mean, are you successful with your field goal operation or not? I don't know. I would say 2, if not 3 football games a year can come down to that, especially for a team that you expect to win, the Browns.
Right.
Well, you probably better get 2, if not 3 wins like that. Maybe last drive, tie football game. Hell, maybe you're behind a point or 2 and need that field goal to win it. So this is going to be certainly uncertain territory for the Browns when they start there.
Well, McLaughlin has been their guy all camp long, so now he gets even more competition after Parkey and he were competing, and then Parkey got hurt. So now we'll see which one of the 2 they have in camp they dress for Sunday's opener against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Reg, real quick, the Browns, J.C. Tretter's been out, but reports are that he will play Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs, which is good because you want your center, the captain of that offensive line, if you will, in there when you face Kansas City and everything. So when you look at it, OBJ, supposedly all reports are thumbs up that he's going to be good to go. Tretter's coming back. So your offense is as healthy as it's been in many, many years. So that should be, great to go. And then defensively, you're getting some of these guys back. Knock on wood, nothing happens in practice, but no excuses. A lot of expectations for this team this year. And they start right out of the gate with a tough test, but at least they're going to be healthy, it sounds like, as they take on Kansas City for the most part.
I think the offense is going to have to carry them in the early going, Ken. I don't think there's any question about that. And for all the reasons we've been discussing here on R&R, since we started getting together with our podcast, I mean, going back to the winter in the off season, again, but this is what this is right now. We know that Andrew Berry did a huge makeover job on that defensive side of the football because it just average at best in 2020. The offense was so stellar that they were in how many high scoring games did they have that the Browns won? Quite a few of them, and I think that's going to have to be. They're going to have to carry this football team to start out. And I hope it doesn't last all year long. Where as we said, you're not going to win 38-35 every week in the NFL. You just hope that that's not the case more often than not. But I do think early on, I mean, Kenny, and if I'm wrong, I'll say so. And wow, what a defensive performance. But I can't see the Browns holding Kansas City to 17, 20, even 23 points next week. I think that's pie in the sky. I don't see that at all. I'd be shocked if the Browns didn't have to win a game in the 30s.
I was going to ask you that, Reg. We make our prediction for week number 1 here in the final minutes here talking Brownies. It's a hell of a way to start with a defense that hasn't played a down together at all. Okay. Other than in practice in a real game situation. So, the Browns are 1-20-1, Reg, in the season opener since they returned in 1999. Jeff Garcia beat the Ravens in 2004. Right. They tied the Steelers a few years ago, but it's been 16 straight years without a win on opening day. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be 17 as well. I just think the Chiefs at home will find a way to beat the Browns in, like you said, what should be a high-scoring game. I'm going to give it Chiefs 34, Browns 28 in week 1.
I'm with you. I feel the same way. I mean, can the Browns, of course, because of their offense and because now of understanding what it takes to win, can they go in there and could they win that football game? Well, they can, sure. But I think that, again, if they're going to do it, it's going to have to be where I'm going to say they're going to have to put up at least 35 to be able to win this because I just cannot see Kansas City. Like I said, I'm looking at, something like 35-27, the same area you're in, right. 35-28. I just, you'd have to get some help. I think Patrick Mahomes and his offense would have to be error prone, not convert, turn the football over a couple, 2-3 times that, negate drives for them. And, just come on, how often does that happen to Kansas City? Not often.
Yeah, that new offensive line, Reg, that they're still gelling, and maybe the pass rush of the Browns with the bookends of Clowney and Myles Garrett and all the other defensive ends that they kept. Maybe they can get some pressure on, Patty Mahomes and force it, get a pick six, a defense. I think if they're going to win the game, they need to get a defensive score. If the Browns are going to pull off the week 1 upset, they've got to get a defensive score in order for that to happen and win the turnover battle. That's how I think they win it.
Yeah, well, of course, no question. For everybody that's, Browns fans, you guys would, got to start out against Kansas City. Just had to play them in the AFC Championship. Listen, think about it. Actually, it's the best time to get Kansas City. Yep. You knew they were going to have to be on the schedule. Well, you want to play them in week 11 or week 13 when they might be 10-2 by then? Right. No, this is the best time to play them, Ken. They're on the schedule. Get them early. Play them early, maybe before, they start to, find their way to what they normally are and have been.
All right, so there's our look at the Browns heading into week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll again do a podcast after the game next Sunday night. We will tape something, so you'll have it Monday morning as Michael and I will recap week 1 and all the weeks the Browns play here on the R&R podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. When we come back, though, we're going to dive into a game that has already been played by the Ohio State Buckeyes. Week 1 in the books, a Thursday nighter in Minnesota. The Buckeyes come away the victor, 45-31 in that one. Michael and I will give you our thoughts when we return to the Reg and Rhoda podcast right after this.
Hey there, this is Brent Spillin, co-host of a Swingin' a Tribe MLB podcast. Listen, we're just a couple of fans who love to talk everything Cleveland Indians baseball. If you're a fan like us, then this is the podcast for you. Go Tribe.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome back to the R&R podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. And while the Browns are waiting to play their first game of the season, the Buckeyes got their first game in on Thursday night. It was a road game on national TV in some windy and rainy weather against a very good, in my opinion, compared to recent years, Minnesota football team. And with a first-year starting quarterback, Michael Regai, I was a little concerned about the Buckeyes and C.J. Stroud. And at halftime, I was even more concerned as they were down 14-10, but the talent won out in the second half. The Buckeyes were able to prevail 45-31. I'll get your thoughts, and then I'll weigh in with mine after that. What'd you see on Thursday night?
Well, it didn't surprise me that, C.J. Stroud came out, a young man, and, a college redshirt freshman, and what did he play? I think he played about 8 offensive possessions last year. Maybe it was 3 offensive possessions, but he didn't throw a pass last year. Right. Backing up Justin Fields. So, and again, I get it. If you're an Ohio State fan, you're saying, oh, is this going to be our next Justin Fields? Well, slow down now, okay? First of all, Justin Fields is one of the most special quarterbacks that we've seen in the college football landscape in I'd say the last 10 years, honestly. And there's a reason he's a first-round draft pick by the Chicago Bears. I don't understand why Matt Nagy's not playing him over Andy Dalton, but that's another story for another day. But, Kenny, so again, I expected that, listen, C.J. Stroud, there's going to be nerves. He's going to struggle a little bit. But, again, is he going to be – I don't think he's going to be as good as Justin Fields, but he doesn't have to be as good as Justin Fields to keep Ohio State, where they are as one of the top 3 or certainly top 5 or 6 football teams in the college game. So, Kenny, for me, more honestly, that offensively is going to take care of them. They got to get better defensively.
Oh, boy.
And they got to make improvements, because I don't know if a lot of you Ohio State fans know this, but last year statistically, and yes, I don't live and die by stats. However, that was the worst statistical defense in the history of Ohio State football.
Yeah.
Giving up 26 points a game. And think about it, Ken. If they didn't have the elite offense that they did, they'd have lost 3 or 4 football games last year.
Sure.
Because defense wasn't going to win it for them. That was, Kenny, and I'm not saying they're not talented. We know they got a lot of talent.
Right.
But, a lot of people I know blame it on Kerry Combs. I want to see, because you're a big Ohio State fan. That's a talk I get around. I mean, we were talking about it. I called a game on Thursday night as well. I called Ball State of the Mid-American Conference in their opener. And there were people talking about it there. Oh, wow. Kerry Combs, a terrible defensive coordinator. They got to get rid of him because he's the problem. Okay. I always think that's the easy way out, but I'll defer to you. All I know is this. They got to improve. Because you can win the Big Ten because they're that, but I'm sorry, if you're going to give up, you're going to give up 52 to Alabama, you're not going to win. So you got to find a way to talking about it's a national championship, isn't it, for Ohio State?
That's it.
At least get to the college football playoff and play in the national championship game. Kenny, if they don't make some solid improvements this year, they're not going to get that far. I don't care what the offense does because they're average at best defensively.
Reg, I'm very concerned about the defense. It did not look any better to me than what we saw last year in the national championship game against Alabama. It's just that Alabama's a hell of a lot better than Minnesota, so they put up 52. Minnesota, and after losing their stud running back in the third quarter, still put up 31 on Ohio State's defense. So right now, for me, and I told you this as we were getting ready to tape this podcast, offensively, C.J. Stroud, yeah, he struggled. He said he had the jitters, first game jitters in the first half. He was very good in the second half. And he just needs to distribute the football and not make mistakes because Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and Travion Henderson, who was shot out of a rocket on that screen pass and showed you as a true freshman why he was the best running back in the country. Master Teague's your goal line back, I think, for, short yardage touchdowns. Mayan Williams, kid you and I saw a few years ago in the state championship game, Canton, emerged and scored their first touchdown. And all of their touchdowns were 32 yards or more. So they're very explosive offensively, right? And they did have a strip sack, fumble return for a touchdown. Haskell the Rascal, Garrett, as Gus Johnson called him, scored on the scoop and score. But defensively, Reg, I watched Georgia play Clemson. I watched Alabama and Miami. And the Buckeyes defense, they are nowhere near Bama, Georgia, Clemson right now. Offensively, yes, they're right there. I'll put them right there with all three of those schools on offense, maybe even better than a couple of them. But defensively, out of those four, they're number 4. And if they have another year like they did last year, ranking, in the bottom 10 spots in all of D1.
I think we're 85 or 86, and there's 130, FBS teams. But Ohio State football. I'm sorry, come on, you gotta live to a better level than that. You can't be 86th, because something's amiss. I'm sorry.
I think in passing, Reg, they were third worst. Yeah, they were third worst in all of D1 last year. So, Kerry Combs, what's the common denominator? Different guys, same schemes, same results. And they're recruiting, if you go by the 3, 4, 5-star method, they're recruiting supposedly good players. Now, here's what I will say in defense of their defense and Kerry Combs from Thursday night. Cameron Brown, starting cornerback, did not play. Seven Banks, starting cornerback, did not play. Josh Proctor, defensive back, safety corner, played, got hurt, and left the game. So there's three key players for them that, 2 of them didn't play at all. One did and got hurt. So
while that's true, were they not all starters last year? They had the worst defense in Ohio State. Well, certainly played a lot.
Played a lot, if not starters,
Starters have played a lot. Well, they're the worst defense in Ohio State history. So those guys that you mentioned, sure, they're starters. They got to make big improvements.
Right.
They got to make big improvements. I'm sorry, because I agree with you wholeheartedly offensively, but I think it's pie in the sky to think that, when you have to, we'll just your offense, you're going to have to put up 55 and win 55-48. Man, to me, that's living real dangerously, Ken.
I'm with you.
Real dangerously.
I think that they can get through the Big Ten and the Big Ten championship game, no problem, because unfortunately the Big Ten, nobody's catching up to Ohio State. They're just not talent-wise. So it's kind of like, and we'll get to the Indians later, Reg, but the Indians get to play in the AL Central. Well, the Buckeyes get to play in the Big Ten. So that's the nice crutch that you have to fall back on. And you beat Clemson last year. Okay. And you beat them pretty well.
And they needed to. Yeah. Because they got a losing record against Clemson.
Right. They never beat them.
In the college football playoffs. And in bowl, if you add in a couple of the bowl games before the
0-4, 0-5, whatever it was, Reg, until beating them last year.
So they won. So they got a losing record against them, and we know what happened in the championship game. Alabama put up 52 on them. And yes, Ohio State played well offensively. But again, you can't. You're not going to put up 55 when a game comes up where you just against an Alabama or Clemson. It's hard to do. It's just hard to do. So to me, defensively, I'm looking to, if you're a big Ohio State fan, you need to really hone in on the defensive side of the football and expect and want and demand major improvements as this year goes along.
You know it's a bad sign when you ask one of your running backs in Steel Chambers to make the switch to linebacker, right? That tells you there's a major hole, right? How can you not recruit a stud linebacker to Ohio State when you look back at the past and you see the guys that have come through Ohio State going all the way back? Randy Gradishar back in the day, right? Bobby Carpenter, Andy Katzenmoyer, the little animal, and these guys, right? And right Spielman. Now, that Spielman there, Mr. 36. So it blows my mind that they haven't been able to recruit and find the impact defensive players on this team at the linebacker position. It really, and granted, the pass rushers have been great. They had a nice stretch.
You're right. I'll give them their 3 starters ended their eligibility last year.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give them that. But the bottom line, again, if you're Ohio State and you're saying, well, we're there with Alabama and Clemson and Oklahoma, man, that door, you don't ever worry about that. Of course, now, hell, you could lose after the 3rd year in your program. That's why you got to play. You got to play the 4 and 5 stars. Kenny, you got to play them when they're freshmen, because they're leaving after 3 years. They're leaving. So what are you going to do? Sit them? And what I've always had why are you sitting a freshman that he's going to the NFL? So what, you're going to you sit him? So you got 2 years with him in your program and just play him and then expect, and don't tell me, well, you could redshirt. The kid ain't redshirting. He's an NFL player. When he can leave at 21 years of age or with 3 years, right? He's gone. So I'm not letting him sit his freshman year because, well, I got other upperclassmen. That's a thing of the past.
I agree with
that's done, man. You can't look at it that way anymore. So, look, I believe, again, the talent is there, but, they got to show me. They got to show me that there's going to be major improvement, because I'll give them average at best last year defensively, average at best. Again, it's a tremendous tribute to the offense that, they were all able to go into the college football playoff undefeated, right?
Yeah.
And tremendous, because, again, when you give up almost 27 points a game, and I know the game has changed now, but, man, again, I'm telling you, it's you're putting a heavy, heavy burden on an offense that if you're asking them to put up 40-plus every week for you to win.
The freshman, Jack Sawyer, and the other freshman, JT Tuimoloau, they played a little bit in the game. Now, I hope Ryan Day isn't loyal to a fault like Urban Meyer was, where you go with the upperclassmen because they're upperclassmen. I'm with you. If the kid's the best player, I don't give a damn what his class rank is. You put the best player out there, and we'll see if these guys get more playing time as the season progresses. Right. But, can they win the Big Ten with this team? Yes. Can they win the Big Ten championship? Yes.
They've got the most talent. They've got the most talented roster.
Right.
I'm going to say significantly in the Big Ten. Wisconsin looks like that didn't look good yesterday at all.
Iowa looked good, right? I mean,
Iowa looked good. Well, Iowa's good. Mr. That head coach has been, how long?
Kirk Ferentz has been there forever, man.
Been there 22 years now.
Didn't he leave the Browns and then he went to Iowa?
He was on. Here's a story for you, Kenny. The house I live in, the original owner was Kirk Ferentz.
Really?
Yeah, and Bill Belichick's staff was. Yeah, built in 1992. Wow. He was the original owner before, and then he left the Browns and took the head coaching job, at Iowa. So. He a lot of respect for Kirk, and he, and again, a lot of times his recruiting classes are, 25, 30. Yeah. They're never in the top 10.
Right.
And yet he wins consistently. Now you could say, well, but if they played a Big Ten East where they had to play, Ohio State every year, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan every year, maybe that'd be different. I don't know. But the point is, got a damn good program. I expect them to win the West. Yeah. Ohio State does not have them in the regular season.
No, I expect them.
I thought that before I saw Wisconsin last night, who just did not look good.
Ooh, boy, they look bad, didn't they?
Not look good. No, it's a little bit of a surprise. Remember, they finished 3-4 last year, and I tend to. But again, to me, I know everybody was affected. It was a terrible year that kids had to play, and given the situation that existed, but. You still, it raises your eyebrow when you see Wisconsin under 500, because that's, normally they're 9-3 or 10-2, if not 11-1.
Right.
And so we'll see. We'll see how it rolls. But Ohio State looked very good offensively. CJ Stroud will keep getting better. Let's see if the defense improves to give some help to that offense as the year goes on.
Big game this week in Columbus. It's a Saturday high noon kickoff as Oregon, the Ducks, ranked 11th in the country. They struggled big time, Reg.
They struggled big time.
They lost Thibodeau, their top player, potentially the number one overall pick in the draft, defensive end, outside linebacker, however you want to term him, whatever. He was in a walking boot. No word yet if he'll play against the Buckeyes on Saturday. If not, that's a big loss for them. But this is a good test for the Buckeyes in week 2 at home to play a ranked team like that. And we'll find out if Cameron Brown, if Seven Banks, and if Proctor are able to go this week for the Buckeyes defense, which if they can, should help them. If they all play and it doesn't help them, then they're in for, big time troubles on defense.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But it's good to get those talented starters back, yes, and it should make a difference for Ohio State defensively. Although, Oregon's a quality football team, and I like the fact that they're having, this kind of – and the opener wasn't easy going on the road, like we said, and now you're coming back and playing what most people think are a top 10 as the year wears on college football program in Oregon.
So we'll see how the Buckeyes respond in week number 2 after posting a 45-31 win in week number 1 on the road in the Big Ten at Minnesota. All right, break time for us. When we come back, Michael and I are going to dive into what the hell are the Cavaliers doing? It's all about the bigs, big guys, and rotors. and it must be, because the Cavaliers are only signing or drafting or trading for 7-footers. We'll get into that when we come back. And the Indians still flirting with 500 as this season continues to wind down. So we'll talk a little Tribe, and then a little bit later, stay tuned, the first edition of Bump and Run on the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast as well.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading.
And from collecting to flipping, join us on The Ball Card Show.
The sports podcast for the sports collector.
And welcome back to the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast. Roadman Kenny Rhoda, Michael Red Guy, happy to be with you. We talked Buckeyes, we talked Browns. Reg, we really haven't spent much time talking Cavs or Indians since we started the R&R podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. So why don't we, drop a little knowledge for our listeners on what the hell the Cavaliers are doing. Do you have a grasp of what Kobe Altman is trying to do with this basketball team? Because I got no clue what they're thinking or what their approach is to the future of this basketball team.
It's not clear, that's for sure. They, other than you say, looking to stay as youthful as they can, Kenny, I really thought, and I'm not saying we're not going to get into whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent. I really thought they'd move Colin Sexton this year, this offseason.
Yep.
Did you? Okay. Well, that hasn't happened. So now, and I know a lot of you fans are up in arms about moving Larry Nance Jr. Okay. Wonderful kid. We know that. But guys, you got the Nances confused. Larry Nance, his father, was an all-star premium NBA player. The junior is a wonderful kid, and everybody likes him. He's just a guy in the NBA. Ken, come on, man. Let's be honest.
He's a good role player on a playoff team. He can't be a star for you if that's what you're looking for, in my opinion. Okay,
no, me too.
So going to Portland, I think that's a nice fit for him. Yeah.
Yes, it'll be a very good fit, and I think he will succeed with that team because they're a playoff team. But again, is he the type of guy that on a nightly basis, oh yeah, he's going to go get you 22 and 14 and make a big difference in the Cavaliers getting better and that's not the type of player he is.
Yeah.
So again, I get it. I'm the fans. I called the Cavaliers for 14 years and I knew Larry Nance Jr. when he was a kid, but again, I don't know if I'm not trying to tell you that Lauri Markkanen is a star at all, but I do know this offensively, he's a guy that can, he can shoot the three. He's got a nice perimeter jumper. And Kenny, he's averaged 18 a game. And in 1 year, he averaged 20. I'll get you, not a great team, but the Cavaliers need somebody that can shoot the basketball.
Right.
Again, because that's not, Colin Sexton and Darius Garland aren't premium perimeter guys. And again, playing the 3 or even the 4 now in the NBA. How many times you got to have guys that can go get you 20 every night at one of those positions. Well, Cavaliers didn't have that. So I get it. I understand it. Cavaliers, are they going to win the championship next year or compete for it? No. And now, Kenny, as you alluded to, it's all about, I'm surprised with the way they're going. I wonder why they got rid of Andre Drummond. You have him and you have another 7-footer.
Think about this now. For our listeners, I'll give you the Coach Luke on this. All right. Kevin Love's 6'10". Jerome Jared Allen's, whatever his name is, 6'11".
Right, Coach.
Lauri Markkanen's, he's 7 foot. Evan Mobley's 7 footer, and then they got Taco Bell at 7'5". Yeah. I mean, seriously, Reg.
Taco Bell's in here.
Taco Bell's is here, man. Taco Ball. They signed him to that 2-way deal. 7'5". He's going to play for what used to be the Canton Charge, now the Cleveland Charge, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Reg, they were the worst 3-point shooting team in the league last year. Attempts, percentage, makes, all of that. It's a 3-point shooting league, and they went and got 1, 2, 3 7-footers this offseason and didn't address the wing position at all. What the hell is that's why I'm saying, what is Kobe Altman thinking?
Markkanen can shoot it again. He legitimate
40% last year.
Not legitimate.
Bad.
No, he can shoot the triple, and he's a guy. But that's his game. He's 7 foot, but he's more comfortable from the free throw line down to the 3-point line, looking to get his offense. He's not a guy that's
soft
put on
like Chris Mims. He's a little soft, guys.
That's another way to say it, Coach. You could go that route with it too, of course.
Yeah.
But that's his game. He's not going to go crash into the rim and say, "Somebody stop me," because I'm going to throw down on. That's not his game. Now, as Kenny just said, though, nobody that consistently make threes on that team. So now you do in Markkanen. You need if you're really going to be good, you need 1, if not 2 more. But you got to walk before you run. I guess. I'm not 100% sure how they're going to JB Bickerstaff is going to line this team up. Ken, it's going to be an interesting watch, at least to begin with, because maybe they will have 3 of those guys on the floor together. I don't know. And is Love going to be on this roster again to start the year?
Well, if it were up to the Cavaliers, I think they would prefer he not be. But his agent said no buyouts. No, we're not talking buyouts. So So you know what you do? You put him on the bench. You bring him off the bench as the 6th or 7th man. Let him play against the backups and see if you can get 15 points and 7 rebounds out of him off the bench. If he can get on the court and play, that's a big. That's like Grant Delpit, with the Browns. Can they both get on the floor and the field and actually help their team? That's the big question with Kevin Love.
Well, there you go. And is Colin Sexton going to want to give any of them the basketball? I mean, when Colin gets the rock, it's going up now.
Yeah,
it's good. And I'm not saying that in a disparaging way.
Right.
I'm just talking about the way the young man plays the game. Now, you can say, well, he absolutely 100% had to the first few years. Well, maybe he won't this year. Really? Are you going to think he's going to change his mindset?
Yeah.
No. He did that young man feel I'm a 25-point-a-night guy. So to do that, I got to get my shots up. So I don't see that changing much.
Not as he's trying to get a big-time contract too, Reg, right? Whether it's from the Cavaliers or somebody else, he wants to get those PPGs, points per game, as high as he can.
Yes, sir. So it's going to be a real interesting watch. I have no idea, again, not to forget what this 8-9 man rotation is going to look like, because, you got a lot of size, and boy, I don't know much other. Garland and Sexton, I guess they're both going to be on this squad, but there's going to be a big onus on those two as well. And we know that Colin isn't anywhere near what you'd call a superior defender. I'm not sure he cares about that end of the floor too much.
Well, that's maybe
Garland will play it hard.
Right.
But, he's 6 feet tall too. There's just some natural problems that, matchup problems. Not that he won't play hard, but he's checking guys 6'5" and 6'6", and they're going to try to take him to task.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they try to put this whole thing together. I'm just not feeling real good about it right now. That's going to lead to anything much better than, again, 25, maybe 27, 28 wins.
Vegas says 27, I think, Reg. So 27.
Oh, did they? I didn't see.
Yeah. 27 and what would that be? 27 and 55, right?
55 if they play all 82.
Right.
Yeah. So that's
think about it. Garland, Sexton, Okoro, Mobley, and Allen probably projected 5 starters, right? Because you're drafting a guy number 3 on a crappy team like the Cavs, you're going to start him, right? You got to play him. So there's your starting 5, and then your replacements. Love. What is Love? A 3, a 4, a 5? Do you play him at center as a backup as you bring Markkanen in as the stretch 4? So you put the 2 stretch bigs out there shooting the I don't know. That's what I mean, Reg. I have no idea what this team is all about or the direction they're headed. So I'm curious to see how they go about it this year.
Yeah, and of course, JB Bickerstaff, at any moment, he can be told, you know what, we've given you a few years. We don't see. And again, bottom line is, show me the wins. Show me the wins to get us up near a playoff position. Those are going to be hard to come by this year. So we'll see, how much longer that JB Bickerstaff has his job. I do think that they're going to ride it out with Kobe Altman. And it'd be Bickerstaff is the one that would, So
well, we'll let that play out, I guess, as we get closer to training camp and see what happens with the Cavaliers. But we both don't expect them to make the playoffs, and the Indians aren't making the playoffs either, Reg. But after a win today at Fenway Park, as the Red Sox were ravaged by guys coming down with COVID, the Indians finally got a win over the Red Sox to improve to 68 and 66. So they're 2 games over 500. Let me do some quick math on that, Reg. I won 134. They play 162, right? So 28 games left to try and maintain that winning record, so they can say they haven't had a losing record since Terry Francona has been there. To them,
that's right.
That means something. But as you and I were discussing before the show started, hey, in the Central, they can compete, man.
They can.
If they got to play 162 games within the Central Division, they'd be a playoff
win the division.
Team. Right.
They'd be battling the White Sox to win the division.
35 and 32 in the division this year, but 11 and 20 in the East, 13 and 16 in the West, 9 and 8 game above 500 in interleague play. So this team is where I thought they were. They are who I thought they were, right?
Yeah, right.
The old
right.
Benny Green adage. I picked them to go 81-81, and they're showing.
Right. You're right at 500, weren't you?
Yeah, they're showing me that that's what they are, a 500 team. But the question is, Reg, forget about the record. Are you seeing anybody that you believe can be a big part of their future, not named Franmil Reyes or Jose Ramirez?
In a word, no.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm not. I'm sorry, Indians fans. I'm not sold. If you're trying to tell me you think Bradley Zimmer or, Mercado are going to be guys. Well, I'm talking about being all-star type players. Again, I'm not saying they got to be the best in baseball, but do they have the type of talent to be all-star type players? Well, Bobby Bradley, these young men, Owen Miller, I don't see that. They're built on their pitching staff. They've done a miraculous job with that. But Kenny, to me, I had them just a couple games better than you. Okay. I remember 83 and 79 is what I had them. And I'll give them this. I will give them this. They compete their butts off every night. I'll give them that. And I mean that. I mean, a big time ups. Big time ups for that. They compete. They never lay down. They don't check it in. And there are times I thought, man, and again, they'll win games because of how hard they compete, because they want to win. But in baseball, over the course of 162, Kenny, yes, at many, many, many nights, it's going to come down to, who is the best talent-wise that night. And, in most positions, the Indians are, other than the pitching staff, is when they're healthy, as we know, that's the main driving force of this organization. They're going to have to improve. And as I said, I'm sure you'll tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't see Bradley Zimmer or Oscar Mercado or Owen Miller or Dan Johnson or these young men. I don't see them being, big time starters and budding all-stars anytime soon. I don't see it. So that means, and you got to come up with another 4 or 5 position players that are going to help you make this next step. And again, be happy that it's the AL Central, because it wouldn't be happening in the AL East. That's for sure. Yeah. And it wouldn't be happening really in the West either, with Oakland and Seattle better than them. So I give them a lot of credit for the way they play hard, they compete, and that's why they're a little bit over 500.
All right. I will say this. The bat of Ahmed Rosario has caught my attention. He's hitting 286, got 10 bombs, 49 RBIs, but defensively, he's not it at shortstop. So do you make him, as they were trying to make him an outfielder, right? Play him in center, or does he move over to second base? Because supposedly they got like 7 or 8 other shortstops in the minor leagues, right? So here, and we'll get to a break here, Reg, in a second, but here's the way I look at it. From this team, when they're all healthy, I count these as impact players on this team. Shane Bieber, Aaron Savali, Aaron Savali, along with Bieber, Zach Plesac. Okay, give me those 3 starters. Out of the bullpen, I like one guy and only one guy, because after they stop allowing you to put the sticky stuff on the ball, James Karinchak's season kind of fell apart, right? And I don't know if that's the only reason, but yeah, I think it's not a coincidence. No sticky stuff, no results. So Clase in the bullpen. So I got 4 pitchers that I really like. Okay. Jose Ramirez, Franmil Reyes, and that's it. So what's that? 6 players out of a 25-man roster that I look at and go, those are big-time major league players on the verge, maybe a couple of them of all-star players. That's it, Reg. That means
Perez
19
is a solid
other spots. He can't hit though, Reg.
I know he's a solid catcher, but he doesn't swing the bat well enough overall. I know some people say, well, he hit some bombs. Well,
1 year.
Yeah, he's a 200 hitter. So, yeah, I mean, again, now if we're talking, Kenny and I were saying, we're talking about being able to compete and win. We're going to compete and win, get back to the playoffs. And, you've got the best thing going for you in that division because, Detroit and Kansas City, they're improving a little bit, but they're not anywhere near being a playoff team yet, either one of them. Minnesota has gone completely south. You got one team in your division now that you got to deal with.
That's it.
One.
Yeah. So let's see like the Cavaliers, let's see what they do the rest of this year and then what they do in the offseason. And they're not going to spend a ton of money. So, and Jose Ramirez's contract is going to be coming up soon too. So that could be another one of those from Paul Dolan. Enjoy them while you have them with Jose Ramirez. So right now, like you said, kudos. They play their asses off. They're 2 games above 500, but they're not a playoff team now, and there's nothing to really feel solid about for the future, in my opinion, of this Indians baseball team, even with Bieber, Savale, and Plesac as your 1, 2, and 3 is the way I look at it. All right, Reggie, this is it. Final break, and then when we come back, it is the debut, the reemergence of the greatest segment in radio history when you and I were together on WKNR with our producer, Dave D. Natale. It was bumping. You guys started this as a segment right before we actually got together, Reg.
Got together, we did,
And
Casey Koulis was our friend. Casey Koulis, he was a driving force in it too. It
was so popular and it's been idle for so long. We decided, you know what? Finally, with our producer, Dave Emmert, making things happen, we're going to bring back Bump and Run in our final segment of the R&R podcast here today. So don't go anywhere, you trick bag punks. See if you'll be heard next on the Reggae and Rhoda podcast.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles.
And me, Christina Walter.
Every other week, we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of the Producing While Asian podcast. Join us to listen in on conversations with everyone who identify from producers to non-producers who all are part of the AAPI community. There's all that and more on the Producing While Asian podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome back to the final segment of this edition of the Reggae and Rhoda podcast. And it's time for Bumpin' and Running with Reggae and Rhoda on the R&R podcast. How about that, Reggae? You ready to bump and run?
I tell you, I am. It's been a while. And we certainly have for the last 2 months been trying to ignite our TV peers, Kenny. So I've been really, really anticipating this. And I know as we go along, it's going to continue to thrive and get bigger and better.
Absolutely. And we got 2 TV peers that we'll be featuring today, Iron Will and Bob. You can hit us up anytime you want with the Bump and Run hotline at 740-233-2434. Iron Will did, Bob did. So let's hear from Iron Will first. The question for Bump and Run was, what are your expectations for the Browns? What do you got for us, Iron Will?
Hello, man. This is Iron Will from Brook Park, and my expectations for the Cleveland Browns in the 2021 season: win the AFC North, and as a result, host at least one playoff game, make it to the AFC Championship game, and then we'll see what happens. I'll take my chances with this squad. But that's what I expect, and I'll be surprised if we don't make it that far, barring injuries.
All right, so no equipment Reggae there from Iron Will,
None.
but some serious thoughts on the Brownies. Win the division. You've always said that's the first step, right?
Sure.
Host a playoff game and get to the AFC Championship game. What do you think about Iron Will there?
I like it. I believe it's something that is certainly doable. He did not go, I got to go 15-2 and win it all. No problem. So, no, I think it's it's quite frankly, it's a very realistic way to look at the Cleveland Browns and some of the check marks you want to make in terms of starting to show that you can be. I'm going to still say, along with Kansas City and Buffalo, a part of the three dominant teams in the AFC, Ken.
Yeah, I like that, Iron Will. We appreciate you checking in with us. Don't be a stranger. Let's move along as we're bumping.
Bring your equipment next time, though, Will. Bring your equipment, please.
Let's see what we have here. Next up in Bump and Run here on this R&R podcast, we've got Bob checking in with us with his thoughts on the Browns.
Michael, Kenny, a happy Labor Day weekend to the both of you two gentlemen. Michael, hopefully I see you at the Hooley House over the next few weeks for some Browns games. I'm going with the 11-6 record this year. I see this Browns team shaping up to be one of the best that we've ever seen. Go Browns, baby. Bob, class of 04, RRHS.
All right, so
that's Rocky River High School.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, right? Rocky River, class of 04, and Bob likes them going 11-6. That's what I have the Browns going, Reg. And on paper, this is the best team they've had since they've been back. So Bob's dead on right there.
Yeah, he is. You went 11-6. I went 12-5.
Right.
And so I, both Iron Will and Bob are in that same area. I think it's very, very realistic. I think at this point we're going to be very disappointed. To me, 11-5, Kenny's the floor. Or excuse me, it'll be 11-6. I'm sorry. To me, that would be the floor with the 17-game regular season. You got one of the top rosters in the National Football League. I love the way that Kevin Stefanski has put this together and the way he and his coaching staff operate with said roster. Yeah, I mean, to me, hey, 12 football wins, maybe 13 football wins. That's tough division, a lot to ask, I know. But I do think this Browns football team is capable of that, Kenny. I really do. And deep in the playoffs, as we said. And so I'm right with our two callers today on R&R.
Yeah, so there you go. First edition of Bump and Run. No equipment messages or anything like that. That's all right. That's good. They were succinct. They were, on the money. 20 seconds or less is what you get in Bump and Run. And so here's our question for next week's show, Reg, because when we come on next week, we will be doing it after the Browns play the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? So we will recap the Browns and Chiefs, but our Bump and Run question will tie right into the Cleveland Browns, and it is this for next week. You'll have 20 seconds to call 740-233-2434. Leave your voice message, and then we will play them on next week's R&R podcast. And the Bump and Run question for next week is this: what player has to have a huge year for the Browns to be a serious Super Bowl contender? All right. What player has to have a ginormous year? If the Browns are going to get to their first ever Super Bowl, what player has to have that big year? That's our Bump and Run question for next week's R&R podcast. Call right now, 740-233-2434. Dave Emmert, our producer, he's going to listen to all of these. He's going to give them to us. We're going to play the best ones on the R&R podcast. You make us laugh. You make us cry. You make us look good or bad, or you make a good prediction. We'll play them all here on the R&R podcast. Right, Reg?
Yeah, no question about it. So, get out your best thoughts. Bring your equipment if you need to. Okay, that's something that made things special. It'll be up to our producer Dave Emmert and Kenny and I, how far we're going to let you go. But we've been down this road before with all of you TBPers on Bump and Run. So, we'll handle it. You do it. We'll handle it, and it's going to make it the segment exactly what we hope it will be, and that's because all of you will do it the strong way, right, Kenny? So we're looking forward to that.
Should be a lot of fun. TB Peers, looking forward to hear from you. Reg, looking forward to hear from you next week as we'll break it down after the first game of the regular season between the Browns and the Chiefs here on the R&R podcast.